Wasn't last week supposed to be the dark, depressing episode? Holy hell.
Welcome, Constables, Cryons, and Zodins, to the 94th production of an Unearthly Podcast, featuring Attack of the Cybermen and streaming live on the 24th of February, 2015. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Yo!
And I have no idea what our opening joke was this week.
Essentially, I was poking fun at the fact that this was also a really dark, depressing episode where everyone dies.
Oh, I thought we were going to do the Teenage Mutant Ninja thing with the
I completely forgot about that.
I've been spending the past 2 weeks trying to figure out how you were going to make a turtle joke out of this episode.
You see, you need to poke me with the reminders. No one poked me with reminders, so I'm just like, what do I do?
I can't blame Matt for forgetting, because this is his first week back from hell. So, his first full week back, I should say.
Yeah, you needed to poke me with reminders of what the plan was, because I completely, totally forgot, because,
I've
I was
had
up for like
issues
3
of my
days.
own.
I had scripted it, but I had no idea how you were going to do it, or how Lytton was going to be April. Okay, then,
Oh, well.
So, I guess we start off with the news, then.
Yes.
All right.
News.
Yeah, the news.
Speaking of dark and depressing.
Yeah, speaking of dark and depressing, I have the regret to inform you that Doctor Who has lost another alumni. Not an actor, but we have lost veteran Doctor Who designer Barry Newberry, who has died at the age of 88.
Good run.
Oh, yes. He well past the good run mark. He is one of the most prolific designers from Doctor Who, taking over from the original designer, Peter Bracciacchi, the man who designed the interior of the TARDIS. After Bracciacchi did the pilot, he had to recreate most of the sets for the actual broadcast of An Unearthly Child, and he continued working on the show on and off through The Awakening in 1984, making a total of 62 episodes across 14 stories. Barry Newberry had to first join the BBC in the late 1950s after working as a freelance designer in London, overseeing window displays and designing exhibitions. After a few years, he started with Doctor Who, and like I said, he was on that for an extended time. He created the Court of Kubla Khan in Marco Polo, unfortunately, which has been lost to time, except in stills.
Which looks really beautiful in stills, by the way.
The city of Tenochtitlan in the Aztecs. The cities and deserts around Jaffa in the Crusade, and Saxon England in the Time Meddler.
He did a lot of historical stuff, and he did a pretty good job from what I can tell.
Yep. In 1965, he worked on the first Doctor Who Christmas episode, The Feast of Stephen, before completing the 5 remaining episodes of the Daleks' Master Plan. He focused in the future with The Ark, before returning to the historicals, recreating the town of Tombstone, Arizona in The Gunfighters. In 1968, he worked on The Dominators, and in 1970s, he did The Silurians. He completed 3 Fourth Doctor stories, The Brain of Morbius and The Mask of Mandragora, followed by The Invisible Enemy in 1977, and then finally The Awakening in 1984. Outside of Doctor Who, Newberry worked on various projects. He worked on a lot of BBC historical dramas, including The Undine Line, Prince Regent, The Citadel, and The Shadow of the Tower, as well as more modern dramas such as Z-Cars, Softly Softly, and The Expert. He ventured into comedy with shows such as Dad's Army and Sykes. He won an RTS Television Award in 1979 for his work on The Lost Boys, and the following year he received a BAFTA nomination for Prince Regent.
So wait, wait, television, The Lost Boys, as in the movie The Lost Boys?
Considering this was 1979, I doubt it.
No, 79. Okay, yeah, it must have been. I thought for maybe a moment I knew what that might have been, but no, I don't know.
Newberry had also taken a lot of behind-the-scenes photographs during his time working for Doctor Who, and a selection of these were published in the Barry Newberry Signature Collection, published by Telus Publishing in 2013. He died peacefully in his sleep, which is a very nice way to go.
Yes, at least he went up quickly and painlessly.
At least,
as far as we're aware.
And that's really all I have to say about that. We wish his family well. And he had a good run.
He had a very good run, and he also had a very good run on the show, too.
Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
He will be missed.
Okay.
Yeah, of all the things we can say about the Gunslingers, I don't think the backgrounds or set pieces were ever a problem that we had with that story.
No.
Matter of fact, I think they did a pretty good job since it was mostly set, wasn't it?
No, mostly my beef with the Gunfighters is that stupid song!
That godforsaken song.
Yes.
I get the feeling we're all going to go slightly insane if we have to sit down and watch that Blay episode.
Again.
If we ever do a review on it, I'm pretty sure there's going to be at least a 20-minute time of us bitching about that song.
We did
I have
discuss
not
it
seen
as part
this,
of
so I don't know what you're
our
talking about, but I'm
top
sure it's
10
horrible.
worst episodes. So 3 of us should have seen it at least.
Yeah.
I've seen clips and bits. That's enough.
So let's move on to the next article.
All right.
Yep.
So as we bid farewell to Mr. Newberry, we'll be greeting once again Michelle Gomez, who will be returning as Missy. So she's a very familiar face from the previous series, Series 9, I believe. Yeah.
Series 8 was
And
the last one.
Oh, Series 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, Series
Yeah.
9 is coming up. Okay. Anyway, she'll be returning in The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, which is going to be the
That
opening
might be the
two-parter.
first we've heard of the second episode's title. I don't think I've heard it before.
Yeah, it's well, The Magician's Apprentice. That's obviously a reference to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or the C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia, and the other one, The Witch's Familiar, could be another.
Sort of pseudo reference, yeah.
Note. Yeah, similar reference, this time to the witch from Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, which is, that was also the motif of one of the Christmas episodes. That's, I don't know.
Sort of, yeah.
I don't know. I didn't think of C.S. Lewis when I first saw The Magician's Apprentice. My brain went to Fantasia and The Sorcerer's
too.
Apprentice.
Yeah.
But
My brain
Well,
went a little more Merlin,
Magician's
but maybe
Apprentice
that's me.
is an actual title from one of the C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia books, though.
It is?
Oh, that's the magician's
Yes.
nephew.
That,
Oh, the
yeah.
Magician's Nephew. Okay, never mind.
yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other, and it may be completely coincidental on both parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there is a short video of Michelle Gomez eating an apple and wondering about the evils of the Garden of Eden.
Oh.
And then as she tries to eat an apple, she pretty much gives up on it and starts snacking on some nuts.
We looks like
Please,
we
this
also
is
have a
a
few
family
other
show.
we have a few other actors confirmed for this opening 2-parter as well. Let's set the stage for it a little bit.
Yeah, we've got Gemma Redgrave will be returning as Kate Lethbridge Stewart. It's going to be in the same. She's going to be in the same block, directed by Hetty McDonald,
Which we talked
it'll
about
also-
last week.
Yep, the episodes will also feature Kelly Hunter, who has previously played the Shadow Architect in The Stolen Earth. I think that was my favorite character from The Stolen Earth.
I wonder
the
if she's
kinda
reprising
albino
the role.
lady dressed all up in black or something. Yeah, the albino lady. It just felt very Benny Gesserit, Dune-ish
Mm-hmm.
type feeling. And then Claire Higgins Ohila in The Night of the Doctor, and Jay Griffiths. Best from, yeah.
I believe another article mentioned that Claire Higgins was from Hellraiser. I'm trying to confirm who she played, if so.
Well, we can't just linger here either, but
Right.
Yeah, there's going to be a
Okay.
ton of other guest stars that are all listed too that you can check out.
Yeah, that's actually mentioning in the series, though, not necessarily in that two-parter.
Yeah, exactly.
And I haven't heard of any of these. So most likely they're British actors from various, like, British soaps, etc.
mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, she played the Julia, the stepmother, a.k.a. the female antagonist from the first two Hellraiser movies.
Ah. Okay.
All right. Well, we have some good news for all you fans of Danny Pink.
Which is nobody on this podcast.
Yes, the actor who portrays Danny Pink, Samuel Anderson, has won the award for Best Male Performance in TV at the 2015 Screen Nation Film and Television Awards. Now, the Screen Nation Awards celebrate, reward, and promote products and professionals of African heritage working in the UK and global film, TV, and digital media industries. And congratulations to Mr. Anderson on
Mr.
his
Anderson.
on his. Do we want to say he deserved this award? Or
Well, apparently he had another show this year, so that might be where he really got the kudo points from.
It says on here for his work on Doctor Who and Trolleyed, and I've got to say, while there might have been one or two moments, his work on Doctor Who didn't really impress me, considering the romance that he and his and the star both completely failed to sell me on.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's a lack of acting ability on his part or just a lack of chemistry between the two people.
Or just a lack of a script that actually made sense.
Right, well, yeah, I'm not saying his ability in general. I'm saying his performance did not impress me. That's where I'm drawing my statement there.
I would have to have watched Trolley to see if he deserved it off of that, because other than a couple of scenes, Danny did not impress me that much to deserve an award.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I'm assuming along with the rest of you, I have also not seen Trolleyed at all.
Never even heard of it till today.
Nope. Yeah, same.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I wonder what it means. Is that a British term? I'm gonna trolley you.
I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you.
For all I know, it could be a sitcom that takes place on a trolley.
Does it have something to do with an actual railway trolley? What? I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Never heard of it. We'll have to look into it if we have the time or the patience.
Either way, no hard feelings for Danny's writing. Congratulations, Mr. Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Yes, congratulations, Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Surprised to hear from us, Mr. Anderson. We are everywhere.
And that's how we've used up our quota for Matrix jokes for the week.
I'm a monkey, Mr. Anderson.
Well, we're not doing any Doctor Who episodes that actually involve the Matrix, so hey, why not?
Yeah.
Anyway, so BBC Books has announced that the novelization of the Douglas Adams story City of Death will be released on the 21st of May, 2015. According to their press blog, it is, the Doctor takes Romana on a holiday in Paris, a city which, like a fine wine, has a bouquet all its own, especially if you visit during one of the vintage years. But the TARDIS takes them to 1979, a table wine year, a year whose vintage is soured by cracks, not in their wine glasses, but in the very fabric of time itself. Soon the Time Lords are embroiled in an audacious alien scheme which encompasses homemade time machines, the theft of the Mona Lisa, the resurrection of the much-feared Jaggeroth race, and the beginning, and quite possibly the end, of all life on Earth. Aided by British private detective Duggan, whose specialty is thumping people, the Doctor and Romana must thwart the machinations of the suave, mysterious Count Scarlione, all 12 of him, if the human race has any chance of survival. But then the Doctor's holidays tend to turn out a bit like this. Now,
They make this episode sound so much more exciting than it really was.
They actually kind of produced that little bit there like it was a Douglas Adams cell.
yeah, that was kind of nice. Yeah, the importance of this novelization is the fact that this particular story has never, ever, ever been novelized previously. There were several attempts to try to convince Douglas Adams to do the novelization, for which he flat out and out refused because they weren't offering him enough money. However, the BBC and Target Books before them had the policy that the author who wrote the story would have the first pass on any novelization, and Adams refused to sign, to waive off the writing thing to anyone else, but also refused to actually write the novel. So fans have been wanting a novelization for these to complete their collections for, 20 years at least.
And for those not familiar with Douglas Adams, a large portion of that is the fact that he was a very large best-selling author, best known for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, although he does have another popular series. And
Holistic Detective Agency.
And he was essentially offered for his novelizations the going rate for any other Doctor Who novelization, which he was not willing to go down to.
It's basically what would be considered a pulp novelist rate, which is basically peanuts. And he wanted, if he was going to spend his time writing, he was going to write something that would actually make him money. And things he actually wanted to write. Douglas Adams did not leave Doctor Who on good terms.
Which probably pushed further on the issues.
And as far as I'm aware, he took that bitterness with him to the grave. So,
and a couple of books.
Yeah, unless they were going to pay him and pay him well, he wasn't going to do it. And since Adams died, which was, I think, a little over 10 years ago now, the task of writing this novelization has been kind of passed around a bit. I believe a few months ago we mentioned the fact that it was originally Gareth Roberts that was supposed to write this novel, and then
that's right. I seem to remember doing a piece on him no longer doing it.
Writing it, right. And it apparently went to James Goss, who is now the writer, and it's supposed to be coming out in May, so be prepared to finally complete that missing part of your collection's Doctor Who novelization, fans.
I like how it's sold as if you look at the cover, it essentially looks like as if it were co-written by Adams and Goss, which to an extent makes sense, but to an extent is not true.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. The original story is David Fisher, and then Adams, being the script editor at the time, pretty much had to rewrite it from scratch. And now, of course, it's been sitting there on the shelves, and now James Goss has taken it down and wrote the novel version of the same screenplay. So I'm actually kind of interested to see how it's going to come out.
For those who haven't seen that, City of Death is one of the episodes we reviewed in our early days in the first season of the podcast, in between Series 7A and 7B. It was Randy, Matt, and I ended up giving it a 3.5 average rating. So not a bad story, but not as good as, at least we felt at the time, not as good as it is generally hyped up to be.
Yeah. I actually kind of feel that same way too. Oh.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's if I remember correctly, Douglas Adams basically wrote it in a weekend too.
So yeah, that's kind of why it feels the way it does.
And that's the problem with a lot of Douglas Adams' work, is it's like, oh my God, this is not able to be done. Doug, can you rewrite this really quick?
Technically, by BBC policy, he wasn't supposed to be commissioned to write any script. So if he wrote a script, it was a rush job.
Yeah.
All right.
And the BBC just felt it was worth breaking policy at that point because he had rewritten so much of that script that he actually got his name on that one.
Yeah, a lot of people in the 80s seem to leave Doctor Who on bad terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was a rare incident where it wasn't the direct fault of John Nathan Turner. Douglas Adams was technically, I guess his bad feelings was because John Nathan Turner was the one that fired him, like the day after he became executive producer because he didn't get Adams's humor. He thought it was too sophomoric, and that's a direct quote.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was more essentially that he wanted the show to go in the opposite direction of what Adams was doing, with all the serious, dark grittiness.
Well,
no, that
John
was
Nathan
Eric
Turner
Soward.
can go right to hell, but okay.
Well, that's why he hired Eric Soward as Adams' replacement.
Soward was at least 2 to 3 replacements down the line. Script editors didn't last long under JNT.
Gee, I wonder why.
Except for
Because
Soward.
I think
He lasted a couple of years at least.
Anyway, that's really all I have to say about City of Death.
As I struggle to put my glasses on. Well, if you're a little bit fuzzy about your Doctor Who, there is a new book coming out. What's All the Fuss About? An Introduction to Doctor Who, written by Will Hadcroft and Ian Wheeler. It'll be published by FBS Publishing Ltd. And basically, it asks the basic questions: who is the Doctor? What are the Daleks? And what is the TARDIS? A police box? It seems, or at least to look like, it's an unofficial Doctor Who companion. So it's going to be published the 5th of March, 2015, and is available for pre-order via the FBS Publishing website. And it's just, it's going to be one more thing that's going to help people get into Doctor Who, especially anyone who's new and wants to brush up. Although Doctor Who is pretty easygoing about its lore. I don't know. I always found it pretty
There's
easy to
been
jump
enough
into.
video specials these days that you could you could swing a cat and hit one on the internet, I'm sure.
Well, and a lot of the serials are kind of standalone, even the ones that we've been watching with the Cybermen. Yes, they all they all kind of follow each other. I think the Abominable Snowman, the Yeti ones, are the really the ones that might confuse people. With the second Doctor.
This book makes you wonder, has anyone ever made the Idiot's Guide to Doctor Who? The yellow books with the...
I'm pretty sure the Dummies Guide.
Yeah, the Doctor Who for Dummies.
They did it for Dungeons and Dragons 4th editions.
Yeah, I know.
Is it wrong that when you said the Idiot's Guide, my first thought was like season 12 Tom Baker standing up there with a big grin on his face as on the cover?
Yes, by the way, there is a quick guide to Doctor Who on their website. On the
Doctor
For
Who
Dummies
for Dummies.
website.
Yes. It should show their normal For Dummies guy in a scarf. It just should.
Yeah. So that's about it for that, or is there any other noteworthy parts about that piece?
That's pretty much it.
No, it just looks to be like pretty much, there's also an Idiot's Guide to Time Lords. I'm just looking up different guides. There's a ton of stuff. There's so much stuff out there.
Yeah, we're officially circling the drain. Moving on.
To Google. In our Big Finish news for the week, we've got, or BigFinish.com has announced some blurbs for their upcoming monthly short trips. A 3rd Doctor story with Joe, a 4th Doctor story with Leela, and a 5th Doctor story with Nyssa and Tegan, so you can check them out on BigFinish.com. Similarly, if you're interested in either the trailer or the covers for the upcoming Dark Eyes box set, those are also available there. We'd considered playing the trailer, but with some of YouTube's policies, even though we don't think Big Finish would probably mind us letting you hear the audio, we'd rather play it safe. So if you want to listen to that, you can find it either on Big Finish's YouTube or on their own website. There is also Big Finish has previously announced that they were doing a documentary, an audio documentary related to their novel adaptations. Apparently, there's an extended version of the documentary that is available to anybody who purchases the special edition of the novel adaptations Volume 2, which includes Damaged Goods and The Well-Mannered War. So that's got some behind-the-scenes information. And our last piece of Big Finish information here. By the way, Matt, I do apologize if I'm jumping around the links. I did not look at what order they were in. But our last piece here is executive producer Jason Hay-Ellery gave a special bit of information about the Sixth Doctor's The Last Adventure. This was at the Gallifrey 1 convention. He mentions it's a regeneration story, and so we just had to have an appearance by the next Doctor. Sylvester makes his cameo in the final... okay, so I guess this story is part of it. Sylvester makes his cameo in the final story, The Brink of Death, which is by Nicholas Briggs and is part of The Last Adventure. But Jason says, but how, I hear you asking? Won't this contradict Time and the Rani? The answers are wait and see and no, not at all. That Briggs is a very clever man. So... that's something anybody who's getting that story can look forward to. And that's about it on our Big Finish news for the week.
Yep. We have one more article that's not Who related. We're going to have a discussion on this one, but to introduce it, Matt, go ahead.
Okie dokie. Back in the 90s, there's this popular show known as Power Rangers. Somehow or
Mighty Morphin
another,
Power
it continues
Rangers.
to exist, and is still fairly popular with young audiences. Very recently, matter of fact, Monday, I believe at midnight, at the stroke of midnight, turning into Monday, was it Monday, or was it midnight Monday into Tuesday? I forget which. I want to say it might have been Monday into Tuesday.
I think it was posted. I think it was posted on Tuesday.
Yeah, so when midnight, just as Tuesday was starting, a fan movie, 14 minutes long, and even by the creators, technically rated R.
10 minutes long and 4 minutes of credits, honestly.
Technically a rated R pseudo-recreation, pseudo-sequel to the original 2 or 3 seasons worth of Power Rangers has been made. Again, fan-made. The guy who directed and produced and wrote this, I believe, is the same guy who also wrote, directed, and produced the short fan film The Punisher Laundry Day, which was also a very good video and also very dark.
He's also a producer for Dredd, the non-Stallone Judge Dredd movie.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
He has some.
So yeah, this guy's got some tout. He does mostly fan films when he has the money and the time for it. But he has also done a lot of really good actual films, apparently, in his roster. But he tends to do a lot of really dark, serious stuff though too. And essentially, this is Power Rangers numerous years later if they had post-traumatic stress syndrome. And the war against aliens on Earth has not turned out as well as one would have hoped. And pretty much as they go through it, they are literally killing off all the original 6 Rangers, one by one.
Very messily.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So where do we want to go with this then?
Well,
did you want to explain about what we were discussing with the legal issues?
the fallout of this right now.
So you want to talk about the fallout right now. So
Right.
Technically, from what I've read, and I have read one of the articles about this, is that Saban is not happy that this came out because Saban itself is still working on a Power Rangers movie. They want to try and pull a legal issue with it, but the thing is if they do, that's a lot of bad blood because almost every company out there, DC, Marvel, and other major companies included, look at fan projects as a way of free promotion. It's not taking away, it's essentially something that's a side that fans can watch if they really like it. They can go off to that aside and enjoy it as they please.
I agree.
But at the same time, Saban seems to have so much tight control on their Power Rangers license that they actually have been handing out okays to do fan films. Like they send JDF to do a couple of Green Ranger stuff, and matter of fact, one of them is actually going to be a Green Ranger versus Ryu from Street Fighter.
So specifically, the case with this one is that Saban has filed a copyright claim against the video, which did have it taken down from Vimeo. It has not yet been taken down from YouTube, but it is possible that it can. And apparently, I believe they've also contacted Khan. I'm not sure if that's the director or the producer, but they've contacted him, I believe, regarding this as well. So there's a bit of an issue. It's mostly behind closed doors. No one specifically mentioned court yet, but this is definitely it's very noteworthy what direction this is going, because, as Matt mentioned, there are a whole lot of projects with, a whole lot of properties with fan-related videos out there of this nature. The biggest thing that makes this stand out and will probably drew Saban's attention is how professional this is.
Yes,
But
yeah,
that's also very subjective.
It's very professionally done. All the special effects in here are very well done. It has star actors. I mean, the original Power Rangers, the actors are not in them. They've all been recast, but the casting is amazing. Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, is done by Katie Sackhoff, who played Starbuck on Battlestar Galactica, the newer series. Jason, the Red Ranger, is played by one of the stars of Dawson's Creek.
No, that's Rocky.
Was it Rocky? I
thought Rocky was the replacement for Jason. But,
Yeah.
Yes.
They mentioned Jason. I don't think they mentioned Rocky.
Rocky is I'm pretty sure the main. You'd probably call him the antagonist of the short, whereas Jason is only in it for about 30 seconds.
That was Billy.
The credits list him as Jason.
Jason is only in it from. Oh, you're saying that actor.
What? No, the credits
You're
list
saying
the
that
character
actor?
as Jason.
Jason
actor's
is the
James
one that
Vanderbeek.
you see. You see him on screen for about 30 seconds, and he gets gunned down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the guy with the fake leg that looks to be a villain is Billy.
No,
Billy
they
dies.
specifically mentioned Billy later.
Who,
I'm pretty sure she calls him Rocky early on, and Rocky is the only Power Ranger with a bum leg. That's why he quit.
So,
I don't know. Maybe I was wrong there.
are-
But regardless, the big
seems
issue
off.
that Saban has with this video is the direction it took. This is a very R-rated, not safe for work video. It shows several of the Power Rangers engaging in basically sex and drugs as their PTSD. There's swearing is very much throughout this. The entire concept was the creator Ali Shankar was kind of wanting to spoof Hollywood's tendency to make remakes darker and grittier, and he kind of took it up to 11 on this. But that's what pissed off Saban, is because they didn't want people looking at this who were thinking of their aimed for kids brand. And that's part of their beef on it. The question that I asked, proposing, are the worries on this is if it does come to a legal battle. If this does come to Saban versus Ali Shankar, it's going to mean even far beyond just fan videos. Everything, fan fiction, fan art, every piece of fan works that take place in a universe will now be subject to whatever the outcome of that ruling would be.
And this is something people on the internet have dealt with in various scales for a long time. This, I think, is, at least for the moment, it's bigger and higher profile, although whether it remains that way as, it stops being breaking news is, a question that we'll see throughout the next week.
Mm-hmm. But that it does raise the question, where does your intellectual property, when does fair use end and property rights begin?
Now, since you mentioned the word fair use, whether intentional or whichever meaning you meant, I'm going to say legally, as far as fair use doctrine goes, there's basically two things to look at in a situation like this, and one is the creator making profit off of it that Saban could be making? Obviously, the answer in this case is
No.
definitely no. The creator has come out in several ways. He received no funding assistance. He's not receiving any. There's no YouTube. There are no ads on this. There is no profit involved. And two, can it potentially cost the actual copyright holders money? And that seems to be the crux of Saban's case, is that by it being targeted toward adult fans is somehow going to tarnish the name of their product.
It won't. And
No.
actually, them making a hissy fit about it is actually what will tarnish their name on this particular instance, and will actually probably cause them more problems the more they try to fight with it. Because the general reaction I've heard so far about this particular video has been nothing but praise so far.
I watched this video earlier tonight, and if Power Rangers had been like this, I'd still be watching it today.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even if they dropped the swearing, just that dark, dystopian future feel of it, I was eating that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, if you took this and toned it down to PG-13, which probably would have taken 15 minutes with a video editor, and that's about it. 15 minutes in terms of the amount of work, not the amount of result. It's still, it'd still be a fairly good product. As a purist, in the sense that I do not like changes that contradict existing continuity, I have gripes I can bring against this. But looking at this as an alternate universe that split off somewhere very early in the fourth season of Power Rangers, I can, separate it from the original thing and enjoy it in that way.
And the creator has said that it is an alternate universe, so.
Okay.
Yes. Well, yeah.
I mean,
obviously
anything that takes place from the second movie onward would completely not match this at all. So it's very obvious that this cannot be taken as the existing Power Rangers universe. But then again, Power Rangers itself just tried to do a 20th anniversary special, and they bollocksed that up also. So I'll take this one.
Mm-hmm. If they're gonna bollocks the universe either way, I'd rather have it bollocks this way than
apparently they
trash on
did
TV.
fire the producer that most people are placing the blame for the faults in Megaforce on. So Dino Charge might be an improvement.
Can't say I've heard anything negative about Dino Charge as of yet, but I can't say much on that either. Haven't been paying too much attention.
But this is something
Yeah, I
that
think it's only 2 or 3 episodes in. I've only watched the first.
This is something that you want to pay attention to if you are a fan fiction or fan art author, or if you ever dip your fingers in anyone else's pool. Because, like I said, if this ever came down in the thing of Saban, then yeah, if you so much as drew a picture of the Doctor, the BBC would have the right to come in and say, no, you're stepping on our intellectual property. And that lawsuit would be a legal grounds for them to do so.
If this lawsuit does happen, if it does actually succeed in taking down this video completely, yes.
Yeah, like I said, if the lawsuit happened and it worked in Saban's favor, yes.
I'm going to say if making an R-rated version of a well-known property on social media is grounds for this for a successful legal action, DeviantArt would be the one to have the most concern about it.
DeviantArt would be dead in the water once this happened.
DeviantArt would be dead within about a week, and so would 3/4 of YouTube.
Unless Saban can honestly prove that people are confused. I mean, the name... I'll admit, the name of this video, Power/Rangers, is not in their favor, in the favor of the creators. That said, Saban's case is essentially that they need to prove that people that would be watching their show are driven away from it because of this video in order
And that's
for them
impossible.
to. I mean, granted, it being the internet and them having more money, I'm honestly surprised YouTube hasn't taken it down yet. And I mean, that's just the fact that it blew up so quickly in views is probably the only thing that saved it. But generally, in terms of actual legal action, rather than just getting it taken down off of sites, that's what they need to prove.
Well, Ali Shankar says that he will not remove it from YouTube until he gets an actual cease and desist.
Yes, but that doesn't stop YouTube from taking it down. YouTube takes things down whenever the hell they feel like it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, if you're at all interested in this, I would recommend seeing it as soon as possible before it is taken down. And yeah, this is something to pay attention to. Because like they said, DeviantArt would die quickly, YouTube would lose a good chunk of stuff, fanfiction.net would be next. And it would just kind of spread like a virus of cease and desists and potential legal action throughout the internet, and it would, it would come down to the point of
it would devastate the internet for years.
Yeah, it really would come down to, is this breaking the First Amendment? And it's kind of an interesting debate on whether it would.
I mean, this definitely, I don't think it's as groundbreaking as all that, just because there have definitely been a lot of situations of, for cease and desist, for example, when Hasbro started to charge people to watch My Little Pony on YouTube. When they started the paid streaming service, they started to put cease and desists out on a lot of fan animation video makers, and I just happened to have come across this on Facebook. Is the only reason I know about that. I'm not.
Yes, but
that involved.
A lot of the fan animations were using episode animations as a base. There is not a scene in this film that's taken from Power Rangers. Every scene is originally done. There are none of the original actors. The only things is that the characters are Power Rangers. The suits are reminiscent, not exactly, but reminiscent.
They do use all the same names, which is another thing that is technically iffy, and that in this case, it is very clearly fan fiction featuring the established characters.
But they're also established characters that, for the most part, have been lost.
That's a bit less of an issue.
They are, however, established characters that have been mostly unused for the last 10 years. So
yes, what would this do to like Star Trek: The New Voyages, which is continuing Kirk's 5-year mission, but it's all original stories with new actors.
That would be gone in an instant.
Yeah, would Paramount turn around and slap them with a cease and desist because it's the exact same thing?
It's not. I guess. Well, yeah, Paramount does have the movies coming out. I was going to say it can't. It's obviously not. They obviously don't have any television show like Power Rangers.
Or it might even be CBS television that would slap them. Either way,
right?
But it's the exact same thing. The only difference is that one's following the feel of the original, and this is a darker version, which would even argue more that this is an original work.
And the thing is, in 90% of cases, the original creators will either ignore or promote something like this. And again, the fact that this is so, the fact that this is so professional and can be mistaken for legitimate work, coupled with the fact that it is such a variance in tone, is both what got this the attention from fans and from detractors and for legal reasons.
Where would it end? Would this, be, if this went down, would it be Disney slapping cease and desists on every 2 people doing a rotoscope lightsaber battle to Duel of the Fates in their backyard? It's just one of those things that, if you think about the ramifications, it gets scarier and scarier as you think about it.
Someone commented on one of the articles I saw. Someone commented, "Am I going to get slapped with a fine or something if I, draw a picture of another character on a napkin and hand it to somebody?"
That was a quote that the creator said.
Yeah, I thought it was a quote from the creator.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen that one quoted on a couple of the news sites. So yeah, that's the big question. If this is illegal, if this is in favor, where is that line? Where is the line in the sand between what you're safe to do and what you're not safe to do? Or is there a line at all?
If they go in favor of Saban, then does that automatically mean that every other company will start suing everyone?
depending on the company.
And again, this is where it's a very fuzzy line because it's not like they're working on new legislation. It's simply, what the companies are willing to do about it. Some companies straight up have said they do not care. As long as you're not going out selling bootlegged copies of their DVDs, they're not going to stop you from any fan work you do. Some already tried to stop shit and very often are unsuccessful at it.
Yes.
To the point that
Randy mentioned Star Wars and such. Lucasfilm has always been very, not in terms of spelling out, what they will and will not accept, but they've, always been very firm. They've always had a certain amount of give that they're always willing to give, and a certain amount of things that they're going to slap you hell no for. And they're usually pretty consistent with that, although obviously there's some shifting expected considering they've come under new ownership in the past few years.
Yeah, and, Disney, I think, is going to be a lot stricter than Lucasfilm ever was, because they're Disney, and they tend to be. But, the fact is that it's not so much as who's willing to, it's the fact that if they have this legal precedent, it makes them a lot easier to do it. Meaning that a lot more people that are just saying, go ahead right now, might actually be looking at taking that action should this be a successful lawsuit.
It really depends upon the company.
The whole crux of this is that Saban needs to prove that essentially that this is driving people away from the established product. So even if they get some sort of reparations on that, there's still a very small number of cases that's actually going to apply to of other fan works, because the vast majority will not drive people away. There are some, such as I mentioned with the My Little Pony fan videos, where people would watch the fan videos instead of watching the original show because they preferred them, and that is where the creators are already starting to step in. Other than that, it's, any precedent set by this, except for some really ballsy executives who just are lawsuit happy, is not going to actually change the results of a lot of cases.
Nintendo.
Well,
yeah.
It goes so against business practices. You keep sending out lawyers. That's really kind of draining your company of money, of funding.
And not to mention, if you
Even
keep
if you're
slapping everybody's hands, people are going to just shrug and give up, and you're just going to sit there with no promotion whatsoever from the internet.
Yeah, you're going to lose customers. You're going to lose promotion.
If you're a big enough company, you already have those lawyers on retainer. You do, because you are going to have to deal with lawsuits as a large multinational company. So sending out the lawyers is not as much of a financial drain as you think it is. But
the backlash from the fans and the people who were up till this point buying your stuff will be huge, though.
If this does go to a lawsuit, and both sides are unwilling to stand down, this could be one of those cases that would keep getting kicked higher and higher, too.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure, despite the Power Rangers quote-unquote rights, I don't think Saban has much of a leg to stand on this one.
I don't know. They have a bit of a leg.
Very tiny one.
There are a few things in there that are enough that they could claim copyright infringement. The Power Rangers theme was used, although it was remixed.
Remixed. It was practically an entirely different theme. It just used the same words with an extra filter. Otherwise, it was nothing like the theme.
I didn't hear any words, but I definitely heard some very similar notes. It was obviously a remix, but it was also just as obviously a play on the same original song.
And yeah, the costumes are close enough that could become a matter of contention too. But
Yeah, but you
again,
could say that about every single freaking superhero type team like thing like this too. So where do
this
you
is a
draw the
little
line?
closer because it's still the same costume pattern.
Only on the chest piece. And even then,
Again,
that's a
that
bit
might
iffy.
be enough. But that's something for if it goes to a lawsuit for the lawyers to quibble out.
And yeah, we could sit here constantly arguing the legalities of all this, though, too, but it's still not going to go anywhere until
I
something
will
more
say I am not
happens.
against it. I am not for Saban on this, but
No, totally not.
I'm just worried what would happen if it did. That's my concern.
Yeah.
Is my paranoia of what happened if that did go down? Because, like I said, that would be moving a bar in a direction I don't want to see it go.
Since we've spent a while on this, does anybody have any new points they want to bring up? Other, anything completely new that we haven't gotten mentioned about it?
No, I think we've talked this one down.
Love the ending,
Okay.
by the way.
Actually, we
But
probably
like-
as well
like-
do the summary before we go into talking about the discussion of what the pen name on this episode actually means, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can go
although I
into
would like to.
our Attack of the Cybermen talk.
Yep. All right. So summary. We start the episode with two sewer workers going through a very dark London sewer. They're pointing out that there's a wall where there shouldn't be, and that everything seems to be messed up. And very quickly, they're attacked and killed. Meanwhile, we completely switch tracks to the TARDIS, where the Doctor, fresh off killing a giant slug with some salt, has decided to do something that he's done before, but apparently can't remember trying to do, and that's repair the chameleon circuit of the TARDIS. Apparently, his regeneration has made him forget all of Logopolis.
Well, to be fair, I don't think he was fixing the fact that it could change. He was just fixing what the outer shell looked like as a police box.
Yeah, this was his attempt to actually fix the chameleon circuit so it would actually work normally, which is something he has not done.
Well, both times he uses the terms repair the chameleon circuit. Logopolis establishes that the chameleon circuit has jammed in the shape of the police box. So, regardless, either way, he's trying to fix the frickin' thing. And he just has seemed to forgot that last time it didn't end that well. So, he does this while Perry looks on very nervously as the Doctor has not been himself. Quite literally. While this is going on and a few sparks are flying, we cut to a completely unrelated scene to the previous two, which is a car which is pulling up in front of a building which apparently contains 10 million pounds in diamonds. Apparently, we have walked onto the scene of the Italian job.
What building doesn't contain 10 million pounds in diamonds?
As this four-man team is basically planning on breaking into this building, and one of them is a man by the name of Lytton, who, if we've been watching previous serials, we knew was commander of the Dalek Task Force in Resurrection of the Daleks, back at the end of the Fifth Doctor era. How he's become a leader of a gang of thieves, we're not sure, but we can probably guess.
Very easily.
Meanwhile, the Doctor has finished his momentary repairs, and after a little mishap, manages to appear in Earth's solar system. He knows because looking out the TARDIS monitor, he can see Halley's Comet, which looks like every other comet in the known universe. But he seems to know that it's Halley's Comet by default, which means he's at Earth. He's about to make a landing when he hears a signal coming from the TARDIS speakers, ranging from, you guessed it, London. So the Doctor, of course, has to land to investigate. Lytton and the others now are establishing that their plan is to sneak into this building through the sewers, which they're going to do from apparently the garage of some poor bloke about a mile away. You would think there was a better way of doing that. But this seems to be Litton's plan, and he's sticking with it. So these four trudge down into the sewers. Meanwhile, the Doctor has landed and is meandering through the streets of London, looking for a tracker. The TARDIS has landed in, believe it or not, 76 Totter's Lane, and has changed its appearance into what looks like a fine china cabinet. All pastel and flower printy.
Mm-hmm.
Really, TARDIS? Really? But the Doctor pays that no never mind, saying that it's probably just out of practice as he wanders through. And what the Doctor doesn't realize is that he and Perry are being followed. Litton and we then cut back to Litton and the others cutting through the sewers. And again, they're also beginning to notice that things are not where they're supposed to be. And they too seem to be being watched by a dark figure. The Doctor, realizing, coming to the location he thinks the tracker is, realizes that he's been duped and that he's basically been following a false signal. Perry thinks this is a cause for alarm. The Doctor, of course, waves it off, heads back to the TARDIS, and soon the two materialize, the TARDIS this time materializing as a pipe organ, at the same house that Litton and the others are undergoing. Yes, our plot lines are merging, people.
That's good.
However, already there seem to be two police officers at the scene. Only they seem to prefer to respond by the waving of guns. The Doctor chases one down the hole that Litton and the others went down into. The second one appears, pulls its gun on Perry, and briefly thinks he's won, but the Doctor shows up, and pretty soon that officer is handcuffed to the wall. But he doesn't seem to say much. The Doctor and Perry continue down into the sewers, following Litton and the others. And they soon hear screaming because Litton and the group has been attacked by a couple of dark figures. One of their party is dead, and the wall opens up next to Litton and the others, revealing the Cybermen. Da-da-da-da! As if you couldn't tell by the opening credits.
Not to mention they hinted very heavily in places, but we'll get to that.
Well, the music hinted at it quite a bit.
Music and some of the sound effects, actually.
The Doctor and Perry stumble across the corpse a few minutes later, but soon they too are cornered by another person who claims to be a police officer. With some questioning, Perry is at one point told to shoot him. He's revealed, though, to be the partner of the man who was shot, who was killed by the Cybermen, who was actually an undercover agent. Dun 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 dun. The Doctor and Perry start going after these Cybermen here, or start trying to find their way. Meanwhile, Litton and the Cybermen have a conversation where Litton reveals that he was waiting for them and that he was going to hand the others off as gifts. He reveals that he is not human. He names his planet as Riften 5, which one Cyberman realizes is a home of warriors who work for money, aka mercenaries. The cyber leader, again played by Captain Cheese himself, David Banks, says that he can explain it to the cyber controller, who is revealed is still on the planet Telos. We then cut to movie D, which is the planet Telos, where two workers make an amazing escape from Cybermen, but in the process lose something that one of them has found very precious, a cyber head. Why this is important is only revealed later, as the two are planning on sneaking into cyber control with a cyber head as guard and escort. Considering what is inside a cyber head, this is actually more disgusting than you think. Meanwhile, back at our original movie A and B, which is merged, the Doctor, Perry, and our Inspector are forced to double back to the TARDIS, but the Cybermen have already been made aware of its existence. So when the Doctor and the others try to sneak back in, they are actually attacked by the Cybermen and are captured. And the TARDIS becomes under cyber control. The cyber leader insists they set a course for the planet Telos. And the Doctor is informed that the cyber controller was not killed but merely damaged. Back from Tomb of the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
On board the TARDIS, the Doctor makes a small change to one of the roundels inside, which will bring the TARDIS slightly off course and send out a distress signal. Unfortunately, the Cybermen detect this and force the Doctor to shut it down. Meanwhile, on Telos, the cyber controller has been informed of their arrival and is gleefully awaiting the arrival of the TARDIS, as well as the time ship that they have themselves. Lytton, who is on board the cyber ship, or is on board the TARDIS with the Doctor, is rather gleeful in in having the Doctor explain that why the Cybermen are homeless, why Talos is the adopted planet, because the fact that Mondas attacks Earth in the year 1986, which everyone realizes is next year. The TARDIS appears, of course, not in the right place. It makes me to wonder if the TARDIS would have appeared on the planet at all if the Doctor hadn't interfered, considering its habits. Deep within the tombs of the Cybermen, which the Cybermen have been having trouble with their reactivations with rogue Cybermen that have apparently rotted from the inside, and basically turning them into rampaging monsters. One such monster attacks the Doctor and the crew, causing Perry and Lytton to escape, and both are taken by a weird race of aliens called the Cryons, who are the original inhabitants of the planet Telos. The Doctor is still captured by the Cybermen, taken up to cyber control, and promptly forgotten about in basically a cell, or, since this is a frozen tomb, basically a giant freezer, where he meets, interesting enough, another Cryon named Flast. Flast has apparently been there for quite some time. Flast tells the Doctor, as the other Cryons are telling Perry, that what their Cybermen are planning to do with these time ships is basically stop the planet Mondas from being destroyed by destroying Earth first. This does actually make the Cybermen the most single-minded creatures in all of Doctor Who history, as they've been now trying to do this for darn near 25 years.
Alright.
The Doctor hears this, and Flask mentions, of course, that the Doctor mentions the Time Lords wouldn't allow this. Flask mentions perhaps they've already sent the agent, which the Doctor realizes means that, yes, that's him. Joy of joys. The Doctor soon cooks up a way to escape into the hallway. Flask, unfortunately, cannot join him, because if Cryons are exposed to temperatures above 0 degrees, they boil and die. And it is warm in the hallway. But Flask asked the Doctor for a thermal lance, which he happened to have on him, which he had been using to repair the TARDIS earlier, because for whatever insanely stupid reason, the Cybermen have locked the Doctor and Flask in a room with a bunch of high explosive, which just happens to work only in temperatures above 0 degrees. The Doctor gives the lance to Flask, who puts it in a box and calmly waits for it to explode. Meanwhile, our apparently double, triple agent, whatever you want to call him, is now working with the Cryons to go talk to our 2 escapees so they can steal the time ship and bring it back. But they are attacked on Cybermen on the way, and he's captured. When they get to the bridge of the time ship, unfortunately, the remaining 3 members are also killed. The Doctor, escaping, manages to reunite with Perry, who tells them that that Lytton was actually working for the Cryons instead. And the Doctor realizes he has to try to save him, but Lytton has been taken back to Cyber Control and has started to be turned into a Cyberman. The Doctor has some brief words with Lytton as he's slowly talking about it taking over his mind, but unfortunately the Cyber Controller comes in. The Doctor manages to slip Lytton I think it was a chisel or an awl. I'm not sure where the Doctor got it, to be honest. And
I think
while
he got off the counter.
Maybe. But while they're exchanging words, Lytton takes this chance to try to get some revenge of his own by stabbing the controller in the arm. Wait a minute. Weren't Cybermen supposed to be invulnerable to most things? And yet this one's taken down by a chisel.
Well, he was kind of stabbing him all over the place, and honestly, it seems like some of the wiring in those Cybermen can also be weak points here and there.
It wasn't just a chisel; it was a chisel of righteousness.
Regardless, this gives the Doctor a chance to grab his gun and shoot him several times repeatedly, causing the Cyber Controller to blow up. He tries to save Lytton, but of course Lytton's already dead. Perry grabs him back in the TARDIS, and they manage to take off just before Cyber Control explodes, meaning of the entire cast of this show, the only survivors are the Doctor and Perry. Yep. Perry does mention to the Doctor that, yes, they did manage to save the Web of Time, that, things happened as they should, but the Doctor can't help feel a little guilty because he had always felt that he had always been a little off about Lytton, and that's pretty much where the episode ends. And guys, you don't need to jump on me when I'm trying to make a humorous comment. Seriously.
See, this is what happens when we go on too long about trying to cover a story. We start making our own comments. It's hard to repress it, man.
Yeah.
Because that's why I prefer to shorten it to like 5 minutes or less.
Anyway, so now we're going on to our basic 4. What we liked about the episode, what we didn't like about the episode, scene we liked, scene we didn't like. But before that, I believe we want to mention the fact that the byline for this episode is probably one of the most mixed bylines in Doctor Who. It's credited to a person that doesn't exist.
A pseudonym.
Which is not all that uncommon in Doctor Who anyway. But although I did look into it a bit more during the summary regarding as to what caused the controversy, and apparently it's pretty much just one person disagreeing with what seems to be the facts, but
there seems to be some debate on who actually wrote it. And who actually finished editing it, and, who did how much of this, Was it a partial idea? Was it a complete rewrite? To be honest, a lot of the elements of this were actually taken from Revenge of the Cybermen, so you could also arguably say that, part of the writing credit should go to Gary Davis, but,
Sorta.
But essentially what it seems to be is that Eric Sayward, who was a script editor at the time and therefore could not be commissioned to write it himself, as we were talking about with Douglas Adams, commissioned, apparently or at least the article I'm looking at is saying his ex-girlfriend. I'm not sure if they were an ex at the time or not, but a person by the name of Paula Woosley, who was not somebody familiar with script writing, who essentially assisted him with making the story so that he could pay somebody. Ian Levine, who was acting as a fan advisor for the show at the time, as far as Sayward's account says, submitted some ideas which went into the script. Although, according to Levine, he wrote the entire script himself.
Well, mind you, Levine was a go-to guy because, of course, this was written in the 80s, so this was before the internet. Yes, there was a time before the internet, people. So there was no Wikipedia. There was no TARDIS info library. You either had to go and get these expensive summary tomes or novelizations, or you could ask Ian Levine, who was one of these guys who basically had an entire Doctor Who encyclopedia in his head. Guess which was cheaper?
And would be able to quote you out episode numbers that you could quickly look up and find, or if you really needed clips or something like Earthshock needed.
Yes. So Levine was a big go-to guy for basically Doctor Who trivia.
And Sayward's account also mentions that Levine did have input, which is part of why it was not listed entirely as being Paula Woosley who wrote it. Although Levine seems to be claiming that he wrote the entire story, that he wrote the entire story, and that Sayward just converted it to a script. Sayward disagrees with that.
So again, it's one of those things that at the end it got listed by a non-existent name. But let's go ahead and go into our general idea. So what we liked about the episode, and I'm going to start with Matt.
In general, what I liked about the episode, I liked the use of Lipton, and that he wasn't as straightforward a bad guy as we originally thought him as, because of the previously mentioned Dalek episode he came from.
Resurrection of the Daleks. And yeah, he was a bit of an asshole in that.
And he does come off as a bit of a dick on this one, but he has his good reasons, actually, for a change.
This is a real kind of redemption episode for him, a redemption serial.
Mm-hmm.
He's a mercenary, but, so it depends on which side is paying him.
And
this
in
point,
particular, this is the
it.
side that if the Doctor would have known in advance, he might have actually been able to help Lipton more.
Mm-hmm. So this kind of takes him from a probably what would be a lawful evil alignment that you would have thought after Resurrection to a lawful neutral. Mm-hmm. For those of you that know the D&D alignments. Okay. So
I see no reason to think a mercenary couldn't still be lawful evil and work against another evil guy, though. So,
Tim.
Basically, I like all the characters in this story were extremely well developed, well acted. I didn't think there was anyone I didn't dislike. Everyone had good motivations, and I absolutely loved the Cryons. They're alien enough to be interesting and otherworldly, but not that they're off-putting.
Okay. Yeah, I particularly liked the Cryon costume, particularly the eyepieces.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they, because first I thought there was an error in production that you could see this person's eye, but I realized that was deliberate. About the second or third time I saw the mask, and the mask was actually designed to magnify their eye.
Yes.
And that made it look fairly awesome. It was fairly ingenious, considering Doctor Who's budget at the time was not that much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Bill, what did you like about the episode?
This is something that, it's worth discussing anyway, because it's something this episode comes under fire a lot for, but I think the continuity in this episode was worked in fairly well. There are about 5 stories referenced in this episode. One from the previous season in terms of but all of which that the Doctor had taken part in that Perry was new to. And in each instance of continuity being mentioned, it's either acknowledged and then move on without people needing to understand it, or it is explained enough that new people can understand it. I don't think there's a single continuity reference in there that would ruin the episode for somebody who this is their first episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah. not
Okay,
that I'm aware of.
Although,
five serials
if
that
you're starting
reference.
with this season, I do kind of feel bad for you, but
Yeah.
Okay, 5 serials that referenced 10th Planet,
Mm-hmm.
Tomb of the Cybermen,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
obviously
Well,
Resurrection of the
yeah,
Daleks.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
What were the other two?
Unearthly Child.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was more of a just a continuity nod, but yeah.
But still,
Right,
it's
that's
there.
what I'm saying. But if you notice, this is a good example of what I'm talking about. The Doctor sees the sign, he fanboys out, and Perry's like, "I don't care, keep moving." And that's the perfect difference between the hardcore fan and the casual viewer of the show.
All right, and what's the 5th?
Did we say Resurrection of the Daleks?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
So we had
You had 10th Planet, Tomb of the Cybermen, Resurrection of the Daleks. You mentioned Unearthly Child. What's the 5th?
okay, maybe
Oh,
that's maybe that's
oh
just
wait,
4.
I know. 5
Oh wait,
Doctors.
no, well they do reference
They do.
5 Doctors.
The Terrible Zodin.
You mean by Time
Oh,
Lord?
Zodin. Yes.
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 I thought Zodin was mentioned in. No, Zodin was I thought mentioned in the first few minutes of Twin Dilemma when he's choking her.
No.
Twin
it is
Dilemma
not.
being the previous serial.
The only previous time Zodin is mentioned is when the 2nd Doctor is talking to the Brigadier in the beginning of the 5
I
Doctors.
thought he called her Zodin when he was choking her because that's
No, he was calling her evil. I
just
think.
evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't calling her by any actual character name.
No, he didn't. He didn't mention any particular name. The only time Zodin was mentioned is the 2nd Doctor is talking to the Brigadier, going, "Oh, the times that we've seen." And he mentions some creatures. Don't forget Omega. Oh, how could I forget?
The Cybermen and the Yeti and Omega and Zodin.
And the terrible Zodin. Who's she? Oh, you weren't involved with her. She happened in the future. And that was all the reference that we've ever had to Zodin until now. And it was the only. And this
that's right. I
the
seem to
only
remember.
reference.
I associate Zodin with the choking scene because somebody or other seemed to keep mentioning it. That every time Twin Dilemma was brought up, that stating that he was calling Perry Zodin. But now that I think about it, I don't think he actually does say that.
No,
So
I don't know where you were getting that from.
it
but
just
no.
got drilled into my head from it being mentioned.
It might have been me, but I was also thinking of this particular episode because this is a much better episode than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not saying much,
Yeah.
mind you, because that's a particularly low bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Aaron, what did you like about this episode?
I kind of like, and there wasn't a ton of detail in this, but I did like the cyber conversion.
Yes.
Yes, you get to see a little bit
slightly
of
more
it.
Huh?
Yeah, you got to see a little
the
bit
partially
of it.
converted Lytton and the others. Yeah.
Yeah, it went into a little bit more detail as to what is entailed in cyber conversion, because we had kind of with the moon base, we had kind of a confused like cyber conversion. They were wearing headpieces, and some of them weren't wearing headpieces, and yet they were still under cyber control. And there was beams shooting out the hands and everything that if you were beamed you were controlled, or sometimes you weren't. So that was all kind of confused in the moon base, at least from what I could tell. I remember Vaughn being threatened with conversion in the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
and also the threat of conversion in the 10th planet. But we don't. Again, I think this is one of the first times we actually see like people being converted, isn't it? I mean, outside of the moon base.
technically, Tomb of the Cybermen. The black guy was partially converted.
Yeah, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's
they're-
right.
but
because he had his
it also
hands.
wasn't far enough to actually work. It didn't take.
Yeah.
Correct.
But yeah, here's one where we actually see the pieces. I mean, we've seen partially converted people before because Vaughn was physically converted but not mentally. But this is one where we actually see, the cyber arms, the cyber legs, etc.
And it really kind of sets the scale for what we would see later in New Who. With and Torchwood with Cyberwoman, but as the process that you could partially convert a person to a cyber form, that it was a multi-step process.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it apparently has gotten a lot easier in New Who, as apparently the cyber mites and stuff work kind of like Borg nanites now.
More or less.
You just inject a person and he starts to become cyber converted. But
At least it starts
yeah,
mind
this
control.
this
It's on
really
level.
starts to actually add to the Cybermen's continuity. And let's see, what did I like about the episode?
I should mention that
already...
of the three 80s Cybermen episodes so far, Earthshock, Five Doctors, and then this, I think this is the first one to reference the fact that they do convert people and that is what they do and things like that.
Kind of.
What I guess I liked about the episode is, barring the beginning of the first episode, the pacing of it became relatively tight as soon as the Cybermen were thrown into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
You really start following the plot a lot easier after that, and it's becomes a relative joy to watch, in my opinion. So,
noting that this is the first serial of a season that switches from 24-minute episodes to the 45-minute episodes. Mm-hmm. How do you think that affected the pacing?
I still kind of see it as 4 parts. I just see the two, just the first episodes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 together. I see it less as they went on with this, this test.
Yeah.
But still relatively early like this. I think they were still writing them in 4 parts and merging them into 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, what didn't you like from the episode?
I think you mentioned this last time, and I noticed it this time, and it did bug me that we can't see the movement on the Cyberman jaws anymore.
I actually like that.
I actually really didn't like that in this one, because it started to become difficult to tell which Cyberman was talking unless they were jerking themselves around extra animated like.
Yeah, at the same time, I didn't like them
Patrick Troutman had the same problem.
I didn't like them completely transparent, because it looked way too much like a fully organic jaw. It made it way too easy to tell there was an actor inside. But the semi-opaque that you had at the end of Earthshock, I like a little more than I like the fully blacked in version.
Yeah. Even the semi-opaque, again, in Earthshock was okay, because you could at least still see something in there. You're not sure what, but you can see something. But this it became a little too hard to tell which Cyberman was talking unless he was literally jerking his head around.
All right.
Or something.
Tim, what didn't you like?
Logic, what he says.
What I didn't like was the lighting in the sewer scenes. It was too dark for me to follow.
Yeah, Aaron and I had the same problem. And honestly, I don't remember it being that dark from when I first watched it.
I can't say I had problems either, but maybe it was just me.
But we were watching the DVD, and we were watching it yesterday, and it was a sunny day yesterday, and even through the drapes, it seemed like the screen was just extra dark. Okay. Bill, what didn't you like?
I'm going to go with some of the loose ends regarding the writing. For example, the Cybermen just happened to steal a time ship, but nobody knows from who or how they were able to pilot it.
They stole it from Bates and Stratton, and probably at least one other people when the time ship landed on Telos. But it was never established why the time ship landed on Telos in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Right. The fact that what was that with that? How the Cryons survived, I don't think is really explained. How the hell the Cryons in the far future managed to contact Lytton, who last time we saw him was in 1984 with the Daleks. So how they sent a message back in time without hijacking the Cybermen ship themselves is kind of weird. And just there's a lot of holes like that to poke in this story.
My big question is, how did the Cryons survive long enough to build the refrigeration units that they need to survive?
It's a very good question.
Maybe
Yeah.
they noticed that their temperature of their planet was changing, and they were already in the midst of building housing for that.
Possibly. That's possible that for some
And
reason...
where
some
were they
reason
the
Telos
last time the
warmed up.
Doctor was here when he? Where were they the last time the Doctor was here when the Cybermen were thought to be dead and the Cryons therefore could have come out and spoke with them?
Well, to be honest, at that point they only kind of went into the upper tomb, didn't they? They only went directly below the surface, and that was probably even too warm for the Cryons to an extent. But yeah, these are all good questions. So, Aaron, what didn't you like about the episode?
Well, this will probably be obvious for anyone else. Who knows me. I just wasn't really digging the violence, the excessive violence of it. I get trying to make Doctor Who go into darker areas, but I think Doctor Who is pretty successful in looking into the more darker areas of storytelling without having to become so gory and so violent. I mean, it's
I can't
more
say the
gory
gore
than-
bothered me, but the fact that they were literally killing off everybody every time they turned around
And
was bugging
that
me.
is
Yeah.
something you see a lot in scripts that Sayward was involved in. I mean, you see it
Mhm.
in Earthshock, you see it in Resurrection of the Daleks, you see it in this episode. I'm not even sure how many survivors. I mean, I don't seem to recall there being that many survivors, at least among the antagonists in the five Doctors, but they couldn't kill everyone in the five Doctors either.
It's a similar problem that the Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics has also been having for like the last 5 to 10 years. Is that they keep killing people off just for the sake of shock value, without really any decent reason to do it other than have a body count, because that's what makes people want to keep reading, right?
Mhm. And I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It felt like I can't remember which internet reviewer says this a lot, but it's the whole downfall of let's make it edgier. It's not edgy
A
enough,
lot
so
of
let's
reviewers
add
say that.
well, there was one reviewer I remember. I can't remember if it was Linkara or it may have been Linkara talking about the Iron Age of comics too, because they kind of fell into the same trap.
Dark
But,
Age,
let's
yeah.
make it dark. Yeah, let's make it darker. Let's make it edgier, and that's going to instantly
And
turn
there's-
it into a classic, right? No, not really.
It definitely makes sense that you say. I mean, there's a reason why the show was temporarily canceled after this season, and permanently canceled not long after that. This is where we start to see a huge decline in viewership, and the things you're mentioning are probably a very lot to do with it.
Yeah, by this point in the publication, Mary Whithouse had basically just gone, okay, that's it. I'm not even going to watch anymore. And Mary
Yeah.
Whithouse was very big on writing to complain to the BBC about what she thought was untoward violence on TV, especially, and Doctor Who was one of her prime targets for a long time. But by this point, she had apparently just, wiped. Apparently had just read it off, and obvious Michael Gray did shortly after this.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to making things a little bit darker or to exploring death or to killing people in Doctor Who. I'm not opposed to that, but it's random and it's just coming out of nowhere and it just feels out of place and out of touch with the ethos of the show.
All right, so what I didn't like about this episode is the writing for Colin Baker.
A bit, yeah.
I mean, it's obvious JNT's doing the whole unstable regeneration bit,
Yeah.
But he goes from the middle of episode 1 telling Perry to kill a policeman to the end of episode 2 feeling guilty over his treatment of Lytton. And then he goes to being an arrogant, pompous asshole by the next serial. It's just a lack of stability in writing the character. And it just bugs me that that's the direction JNT took the character. And of course, it actually bugs Colin Baker, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I almost mentioned some of those points myself, but I decided to go with the rest of the writing as my point instead.
Well, yeah, I went with that because you went with the rest of the writing.
Gotcha.
Anyway, favorite scene. The one scene that sticks out to you the most, Matt.
Favorite scene, one that sticks out to me the most. I liked one. I got two of them that
One
I
scene
really
only,
liked.
please.
I'm trying to decide which one because I like both of them in different ways. I'll see if the other one gets mentioned. I'll mention the one that came earlier in the serial, which is Colin Baker having his fight with the officer and the lead up with Perry. That little scuffle sequence.
The part where he jumps in the hole and comes back up with the helmet on, and Perry almost shoots him.
And Perry almost shoots him, and they cuff the second officer. Yes.
You know, that would have done such wonders for Doctor Who if Perry had shot him and he regenerated him with Sylvester McCoy right there.
Done wonders for the rest of that serial too, but
Death by companion. That would be a new one.
that would be a new one.
Okay, Tim, your favorite scene.
You shot me.
My favorite scene is the one where the Doctor leads them to the tombs, and then all of a sudden it's Night of the Living Dead with the zombie Cybermen breaking out of the casings, you know, and it's very and I really like that scene because it's a fun scene and it's exciting, and I like zombies.
So now I want to make a video with flailing rogue Cybermen done to Thriller. What do you think, Matt?
Do it.
And the thing is, if you think about it, that's actually Thriller had been out for a couple of years when this came out. All right.
Yeah.
Something close to that, yeah.
It came out in '84. This came out in '85. So actually only a year. So pretty contemporary there. Bill, your favorite scene?
I'm going to go with the scene where the Cyber Lieutenant and Lytton are arguing about whether or not Lytton should be allowed to help them, just because it's just damn amusing watching the Lieutenant struggle to, like, no, he's a mercenary, he'll turn on us at any time, but just, I don't know, he says it much more comedic than that, and
then you
I
got
enjoy the scene.
Sly Cool Lipton, that's just such a wormy little bastard, just getting his say into.
You know, we're a planet of warriors. For money, leader, for money. He'll turn on us.
But Rudolph, we have money for him too, and he could be of great use to us.
Yes, you could almost see David Banks physically holding back the excellent there because he knew he got to do it in the next scene.
Yeah.
You could almost I want to say it so bad. All right.
Save my excellence, must save my excellent.
Okay, so Aaron, your favorite scene?
Bates's reveal, because I should have seen it coming, and I'm pretty sure I remember seeing a good chunk of this serial.
When he takes his glove off, you mean?
Yeah, when he takes his glove off and he reveals that he's partially cyber converted, and watching all the other Cybermen stories, I should have expected it, but it still kind of took me by surprise. I was like, wait a second, they've enslaved failed conversions. That's very efficient.
Yeah, it's also kind
So-
of horrific when it happens, too.
Yeah.
He just takes it off and you see the cyber hand and you're just like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what's
just
inside
like,
a cyber suit. You've actually never seen that before.
yeah.
It was actually that's actually a pretty good scene. I'd actually forgotten about that one as far as on my list.
It
My
also
favorite
turns. It also turns the characters on their heads because up until that point, Bates and Stratton are seen as mostly a comedic duo, just like a couple of screw ups, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
it kind of takes things in a little bit more serious
Okay,
note
so
with them.
those are their names. I never got their names.
Bates and Stratton, yes.
Bates and Stratton.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. My favorite scene is the dialogue between the Doctor and Flast when they're in their cell. And I don't know, just the way the Doctor, basically kind of depressed snarking and Flask taking it kind of on an innocent level always amused me. I've always loved those scenes. All right.
By the way, I think there's a pose I saw, or an image I saw somewhere where she's kind of posed with him, and he's kind of got this surprised look, like she's almost trying to possibly seduce him or something.
You get the feeling that she's trying to, in her own crony way, hit on him, but, you think about the logistics of that, and that ain't going to happen.
No.
Should
I mention my second favorite that I
yeah, go
didn't get to
ahead.
mention?
got-
My other bit was I liked my first mentioned one because it's a little bit comical, but it has a little bit of action to it. The other one I liked was because it's pure action, which was the big final fight with the Cybermen at the very end with the Doctor and Lipton.
Okay. With the cyber controller.
With the Cyber Controller and the other Cybermen, yes.
Okay. Least favorite scene.
And that goes right back to me.
Yes.
Least favorite scene.
What was the scene that made you go, "Oh, come on"?
I didn't really have a "oh come on" moment. That I'm aware of. There were some scenes where it was getting pointlessly bleak. I think the closest to being bleak with no real decent point to it was when they were kind of crushing Lipton's hands. That just seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
That was pointlessly gory.
It just seemed unnecessary, and they could have just done it a different way, I think. They should have either gone a little more over the top or less over the top.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most horrific moments as far as gore in Doctor Who up until the next serial.
Yeah.
But I will talk about the horrific moment in that serial if we ever cover Vengeance on Varos.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And there are a few of them in that one.
There are
Okay.
a few of them.
Nonetheless, that's a good serial. But Tim, your least favorite moment.
My least favorite moment was when Perry says to the Doctor, "Doctor, I'm scared. One false move and we could come crashing into Halley's Comet." And I dislike this scene simply because there's nothing to indicate that what she's saying is true. I mean, from what the monitor just shows a picture of Halley's Comet.
It looks
Yeah,
like they're
it's
far
like
enough
flying
away.
alongside it. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like if every time on Star Trek they showed the planet on the view screen, Spock said, "Careful, Captain, we could come crashing into that planet any moment."
Yeah, you would have to be a hell of a lot closer to make it think that you're going to crash into anything.
By the way, since you're mentioning that scene, and this might give an indication of what I've been watching, but as I watched that scene the second time to get ready for the podcast, all I'm thinking is the Doctor turning to Perry, "We should land on that comet and build a snowman."
Let's build a snowman.
Let's
Okay.
build a
I
still have
snowman,
not seen
build
that
a
movie.
friend.
Neither have I.
So, Bill, your least favorite scene.
My least favorite scene, you actually mentioned it earlier, and that is the scene where the Doctor is ordering Perry to execute this policeman for not giving them enough information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, there are ways you can read that, but why do you have, why are we sitting here trying to make up excuses for the Doctor?
Yeah. that's very well used as an example of what the hell.
And that could have all been. I mean, if the doctor had just added in a throwaway line afterward, like, "I knew you wouldn't do it," it would have fixed it, because you would have been like, okay, the doctor is not really expecting her to do this. But without that, you're just sitting here like, what the fuck, doctor?
Yeah. Okay. I perfectly agree with you. That is a deplorably written scene because of the fact that this is the doctor who has sworn against violence, sworn against guns in most of his previous incarnations, going, "Shoot him, Perry." The fuck. Okay, Aaron, your least favorite scene.
My least favorite is the one where they're in the TARDIS and Perry is grabbed by a Cyberman from behind, and she's screaming, but she's also smiling as she screams, which kind of takes me completely out of it. It's not a grimace, like how some actresses they'll look like they're smiling, but it's actually more of a grimace. This is actually kind of a little giggle, and it's a short moment, and it's most people would probably overlook it, but it's enough to really kind of take me out of that scene.
I didn't notice it. I saw that twice.
Yeah.
Aaron noticed it. I didn't notice it so much, but at the same time, I bet what was going on is they probably tried to shoot that a few times. The director's looking at the clock, and you've got Nicole Bryant basically cracking up on the set.
Every single take that they tried taking of her
and
getting grabbed,
they finally get one where she's just smiling and maybe brings off a little giggle, and the rest is like, okay, that's fucking good enough. Let's go get food. Okay, my least favorite moment is also the battle in the TARDIS, when a guy pulls out a gun and shoots a Cyberman in the mouth repeatedly, and it actually hurts him.
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous. I mean, I understand some of the organics are in there, but
what was it? It was in the mouth.
It shot him in the mouth and shot out the back of his head. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
because I like you're saying when
The
the
police
guy
officer
that
shot
was
the
with Linton shot him, right?
Cyberman.
Yeah, the
Okay,
guy that
for
was
for
not
some
the guy,
reason,
not
I got
the,
the impression he shot him in the shoulder, and I thought maybe he hit like a hydraulic pump or something.
no.
We mentioned that the police officer is played by Terry Malloy.
No, I didn't mention that. I'd forgotten that. But yeah, that happens, and the scene for me, it's like, and these are the nigh invincible Cybermen that you had to get out gold to kill.
Right.
Just like, aim for the mouth, guys! Aim for the mouth! You could kill a Dalek by aiming for the eyepiece. Why not aim for the mouth in these? You get the mental image of the Brigadier going, 5 shots rapid to the mouth, Corporal.
Boom, 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 boom. Well, there goes the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just seemed to be a little too.
If the Brigadier had seen that scene, he would have shit a brick.
No
yeah,
kidding.
it's just hit me as being, oh my god, they're this easy. God, why didn't we do this before? Yeah, I didn't realize that was Terry Malloy.
I know that name sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
Davros.
Oh, really?
Yeah, second Davros or third Davros. I didn't realize it was Terry Malloy either.
Huh. Interesting.
I think he's second. We've only had 3 to date, I think.
No, I think he's third because Michael Wisher was the first Davros. Then there was another Davros in Destiny, and then Terry Malloy took over in Resurrection and was Davros in Resurrection, Revelation, and Remembrance.
Okay, I didn't realize Destiny had a unique one.
Yeah, he's the longest running Davros. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still doing Big Finish Davros.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the only time in front of the camera without a heavy amount of makeup. And he got shot for it.
Did you had to look it up to realize that was Terry Malloy, or did you just kind of notice that?
It was in the bonus features on the DVD.
Ah.
There was an interview with Terry Malloy, and he said, "This was my second time in Doctor Who after I played Davros."
Yeah, you're right. And I don't see anyone else of note in there other than, of course, David Banks. One of the Cybermen was John Ainley, and I have no idea if that was a relation to Anthony at all.
Well, if I remember right, I think that the normal Cyber Lieutenant had to sit this one out, and this one's a different Cyber Lieutenant.
Still, I believe they for the cyber controller they got the tomb controller back in the suit, didn't they?
Yes, it was the same guy that was in Tomb of the Cybermen.
One at this point, one has to wonder if he's from Kiad, if he's Assyrian, Kiadi Mundi's race, because apparently the enlarged cranium just continues from suit to suit.
That's just probably the thing they decided to keep upgrading with the controllers.
Originally they were going to make that semi-transparent like it was in the original, and they had a few publicity shots with that, but
apparently it didn't
for whatever
look right.
reason they decided it didn't look proper, or it looked way too fake, and so they used the same spray that they used on the cyber mouths.
Yeah, if it doesn't mesh right, you gotta do something else to cover it.
Yeah. Either that, or when they sprayed the cyber mouths, somebody got the wrong message and did the cranium too. One way or another, it just whatever. Some of the publicity photos had it with the cyber controller look, and by the time it hit the screens, it wasn't there.
Maybe
anyway,
it is
now time. It is now time for our final thoughts. So I will start with you, Matt.
This is. I like this story. I like a lot of the action pieces. My major problem is that you can go dark, but I think in places this particular story, especially for its time, got a little too dark. Otherwise, a lot of this, as far as I'm concerned, actually worked out pretty well in the episode's original favor. So I will account my score adjustingly to my feeling on that.
All right, Tim.
In spite of everything, I really, really liked this episode. In spite of all the grimness and the darkness, I don't know why. I'll have to do some self-examinations.
Well, if you kind of ignore the grim stuff and go for more of the action set pieces and stuff, it turns into a pretty good episode overall.
Yes, and I like the way it was well paced, and like I said, the characters were believable and well motivated, and all the different plot lines were given enough time to breathe on their own, and they all converged very smoothly, I think.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Bill, your final thoughts.
Well, ultimately, I don't think this is as bad as it gets a lot of attention for being. It's still, part of a mediocre season and not that good altogether. It being dark, it being grim dark doesn't bother me all that much, partially because when I look at a Sixth Doctor story, that's a large part of what I'm expecting. So I kind of go into it with the mindset of, this is what the story is going to be, and, it goes up or down from there. That said, I mean, it had a few good moments. Altogether, I'm just not that much of a fan of Eric Sayward as a writer, and also what JNT was doing with the Sixth Doctor at this point are both two of the main things that drag this episode down for me.
All right, Aaron.
It was much better than I remember it being. All three of the plot lines tend to come together fairly well, even if it does entail a lot of people dying in the end. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised watching it.
All right. This is one of the more maligned episodes of Doctor Who. This whole season is. And in my opinion, a lot of it is undeservedly so. Yes, there are some really stinkers in this season. The Twin Dilemma is one, Time Lash is another. But there are also some.
Twin Dilemma is technically the previous season, but it is the serial right before this.
It's considered. It's technically the season before, but most people mentally considered it lumped in with this season.
Yes.
Because it should have been.
It should have been. It would have been a much better idea.
But other than that, you have this. You have Vengeance on Varos, which also has a grim dark, but also has some rather brilliant subtext in it. You have Mark of the Rani, which is very good. You have Two Doctors, which is mediocre. You have was it A Revelation of the Daleks, which is also mediocre to mediocre, bordering on okay. So all in all, I think this whole season's a little overly maligned, and yes, what it does in this episode, it does well. And it's also accused of continuity porn, and I think the touches of continuity in here are actually done right instead of being done wrongly.
Yes.
So I am now going to go to our scores, and we will start with you, Matt.
If we would have had the Doctor at a better state, and we had less need to be gratuitous when it was least needed, this could have easily been a 5. Given what we are handed, however, I honestly can't see I can give it any higher than about a 4.
Okay, and you're giving it a 4?
I will give it a 4.
All right. Tim.
I'm going to say to hell with convention and give this a 5 stars.
That's
okay.
our Tim.
All right, so we'll go to the other end of that equation. Bill.
I'm going with a 3 for this one.
He's going in the middle of the road.
All right. Aaron.
I'm going to go with a 3.5.
All right. Huh.
Where's Randy want to go?
You know...
Randy goes with a 2.
No, I'm not going to go with a 2. But just because I want to be twisted on this, I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Ooh, mind blown. We got a 4 straight up.
Yeah, we now have flat 4.
We have a solid. If we rearrange the order of those, we have a solid line all the way from a 5 to a 3.
That is exactly why I did it, Bill. I probably should have given it a 4, but
that makes this the 3rd episode in a row that I was the most negative person on.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned you're not fond of Sayward. So 4.0 average is what we are going to give Attack of the Cybermen. That should do it for our review of Attack.
Oh, I should also mention, before it's too late, because I was going to mention this earlier, but I completely did not think to, because in between there was a Cybermen story that we've already reviewed, and I'm trying to find our rating for it now. Actually, I should have been...
5 Doctors?
Yes, the 5 Doctors, which we gave a 3.4 altogether, which featured... well, most of the people here, except with a one-time companion, except for Tim.
Yeah.
So Tim needs to watch 5 Doctors at some point.
So
now.
that would put it in between Tomb of the Cybermen and Wheel in Space, I guess, as far as our ratings for the Cybermen have gone.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, sometime we might go back and take a second look at that and see if we still feel the same way after watching a crap load of Classic Who. But I think our general consensus on that one was too many cooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or actually, at that point, too many stars. All right, so I think that'll conclude on that bombshell. That'll conclude Attack of the Cybermen.
It's better than you think, folks. It's not perfect, but it's better than you think.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep listening to our episodes, you can continue to find us at twitch.tv/unearthlypodcast. Go to unearthlypodcast.insomniatic.co.uk for our YouTube productions, which now includes all of our 2015 episodes, and mixcloud.com/n_unearthly_podcast. For social media, you can visit us on Facebook at Unearthly Podcast or Twitter at Unearthly Pod. And if you want to help us keep going, and you enjoy us enough to give something toward, to thank us for it, you can go to our Patreon at Unearthly Podcast.
Alrighty. Good night, everybody.
Next week we'll be looking at Silver Nemesis, and I do not have the writer of that episode on hand.
I'm not sure either. We'll tell you next week.
Yep. See y'all next week.
See ya.
I have to go pick up the DVD for that.